Everyone doing today on this rainy, dreary day? If you have logged in, hopefully you are here to learn about the Kansas Collaborative Community Initiative, our planning grant. And so basically what I'm going to do is just kind of walk through the application process and kind of what expectations we have from grantees, as well as answer any questions, and just kind of let you know kind of what this whole grant is about. Please feel free to ask questions as we move along. I do have some questions that people have sent in that I'll share at the end with everyone and let you know kind of where you can find those if you haven't already seen the ones that have been submitted. But I'm happy to answer any questions and clear up any clarifications that may be needed. So you're welcome to type in the chat, or if you want to wait until the end, then I'll just kind of open it up for everyone to ask questions at that time as well. So thank you for being here. I have this scheduled from 9 to 10. We may not take that long. So just kind of depending upon how we move through this, we'll see how it goes. You should see on your screen basically just the first slide there. And so that's tells you why you're here if you didn't know that already. Hope you did. And we'll move through here. So one of the things that I think tends to get confusing a little bit is what this planning grant is and what it is to be intended for. And so the purpose of this particular grant is for coalitions to be able to really just build a firm foundation or infrastructure of their coalition that will allow them to pretty much get things in place to address the needs of your community, because having a strong coalition is very important to the sustainability of whatever strategies are chosen or programs are chosen, not only for this particular grant, but also for any other funding that you should apply for. And that's one of the things that the Kansas Prevention Collaborative is really focused on and hope to support you all, is to be able to help you find other grant opportunities, and really be able to really hone in on those skills that you have to get those funds awarded to you. So, and that takes time. It's not something that's just done overnight. And if you've done prevention work or you're in prevention work, you know that it's difficult. So this particular grant will walk through, will take you through 4 of the 5 steps of the SPIF process. And so we will actually be helping you with each of those steps for the exception of the implementation phase. And the implementation phase, the way that we have that set up is that is a different funding, still within this same block grant, but we've kind of divided it up into 2 different grants. So this would be planning, and then the next step, the next grant phase would be implementation. So primary prevention. I have learned so much about primary prevention and how kind of misconstrued it gets. And so one of the best ways, and you all may get this too, but, you know, when you tell somebody that you do prevention work, they're like, oh, so, you know, you work with people that are in treatment. Well, no, not exactly. So primary prevention, and these are definitions straight from SAMHSA, from the feds. So it is defined as individuals who are basically not in need of treatment. So they are the ones that are typically our youth, who either may or may not have indulged in any sort of substance abuse or alcohol or tobacco or anything kind of in that realm, So they may have tried it, but they're not necessarily addicted to it. So basically, primary prevention is the need to provide awareness and education around substance abuse and underage drinking and those other topics that I mentioned, tobacco. You can find, if primary prevention is not something that you're necessarily familiar with, or you do want to learn a little bit more about it, SAMHSA does have a fairly short prevention course on their website, and I've shared the link there so that you can go to it if you'd like to. It's pretty broad. It's not necessarily something that's super in-depth, but if you are not as familiar with primary prevention, then it is a pretty good basic course to take or even to share with others, just so you have a better understanding. So here's the timeline for the application. This obviously went out with the rest of the information, and I realize that this is a quick turnaround. We had intended originally to get this out the 1st of April, and due to some internal changes and challenges, anyway, we got pushed back a little bit. So I'm hoping that the application process will not be difficult for you, which could potentially help for this kind of quick turnaround. But with that being said, so the applications are due May 31st. You can send them to that email there at the bottom, the kdads.prevention@ks.gov. And we will hopefully, and I have on here, awards will be announced no later than June 7th. So really my plan is to start reviewing those on June 1st. And we will have awards announced either before June 7th or no later than June 7th. So I hope to have them announced actually before the 7th, but if not, then we'll at least have them sent to you on that day. Whether you're awarded or not, we will make that a notification to you. So some things to expect, this, and I mentioned this, before, but coalition work is not easy. Prevention work is not easy, and they say what it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a lot of people. It takes multiple players to not only assess your community, but to come up with a plan, and then certainly to execute that plan. And that's one of the things that you will have a lot of support around with this grant. Whether you're a new coalition and this is new prevention work being done to you or within your coalition, or if you've been around for some time, we are going to provide you with all kinds of tools and resources to be able to sustain the work being done and strengthen the foundation of your coalition. And so basically what that will consist of is we will utilize data. So we will utilize the KCTC data to assess your community through whatever schools are willing to participate. And we hope that all of them will, but we know that that's a barrier at times. So by using that data, we will also help to build your coalition capacity, help you with what members you should have at the table, maybe where some of those gaps are, who's not at the table, who should be, those kinds of things. So really help to build on who has what strengths and how we can utilize those strengths. So there will be reporting. I'm sure, as you know, with every grant, there's reporting that's required. We have an amazing KPC team that will help you with reporting that will be done on the community check within the community checkbox, and also within the KU workstation, and you will get training around all of that and how to import and input that reporting. Basically the reporting piece is not only is it a requirement, but it's also, the state has to report to the feds, and they have to report what we're utilizing our funds for and what work is being done. So we have to be able to show the feds what work is being done so that we can then in turn continue our funding and be able to receive funding that then will go to you all. So the reporting piece is very important. And it's a way for you to tell your story. It's a way for you to share your success stories and what you're doing in your community. And that just in turn strengthens you all. So the other thing is we will have not only required trainings, but we will also have quite a few training opportunities that are not required that you will be invited to, and you're able to use funding to attend those trainings. It really is just another opportunity for you to network with other coalitions and professionals who are doing the same work and really build on each other's strengths. And then, lastly, we just support. We in the last 4 years of the KPC have really tried to look at different ways that we can utilize not only your time, but our time to help you accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish in your community. And we've got online trainings, we've got in-person trainings, we've got one-on-one opportunities. You will have support from each of the KPC partners that all have expertise in different areas that are there really to help you, whether that is anything from how to hold a coalition meeting, how to maintain members, how to gain members. Just a whole conglomerate of different resources to help you all be successful. And this was in the RFA as well, but this is the training dates of the required training. One of the things that we did differently this year was we added, most of our trainings will be held in Wichita, and that's for a couple different reasons, but one for budgeting reasons, kind of helps you budget those trainings that are in person, but then also Wichita tends to be kind of a centralized point for folks from Eastern Kansas and Western Kansas, and it has kind of become our hub to be able to travel to and offer those trainings to you. So, but then we also have several that are online as well, and those will be held probably something similar to this. Those will be done, the community checkbox ones will be done through KU, and you would receive a link to log on, again, similar to something like this GoToMeeting. But other trainings as well would be through a webinar or something like that, that are some of those additional trainings that aren't necessarily required. So I talked about the KPC, the Kansas Prevention Collaborative, and just here briefly, it talks about each of the partners that you will have support from. And again, each of the roles, and I didn't include it on the slide, but each of the roles that they will play, I believe it was in the RFA, but so you will have an abundance amount of support going through this grant. One of our goals is to help you succeed and to help you get through this grant with the ability to and the knowledge to apply for the implementation funding and or either larger or more substantial funding opportunities that are out there. So one of the things I do want to mention is we're always looking for better ways to do things. And so you will find that throughout this grant process, I will, and I meaning KDADs, we'll ask for your feedback, we'll ask for suggestions, we'll ask for, hey, what's working, what's not working for you, because that really is important to us to be able to have your feedback to know maybe some things that could be done differently or adjusted so that we're able to provide the best support that we can. So the application process, really this hasn't changed much in the last few years. If you've applied with us before, the application did change this year. Tried to make a few revisions to it. And I can pull that up if that's helpful, but really it's just the application itself, which is the attachment A, is, just information about your coalition or your organization. One of the things that we did add this year, because it was some challenges that we ran into, was basically the person who was signing the application, so the authorizing official maybe wasn't necessarily the person who was doing the grant work, and there tended to be some lack of communication that was happening there. So one of the things we did was add on the application who that the person that's signing the application is aware of the work that's being done or needs to be done, so that if, let's say, a community mobilizer is ill and has to, step back from the work being done, that there is an awareness of, hey, this is a grant and there are requirements that have to be done. And so the person that's signing is aware of that. So that's one of the things that we added, I think, with some information on there. The other part I wanted to point out was, I believe at the bottom of the application, there is who should be notified if the award is made. And typically that is a couple different individuals. So that's a real important part to fill out, that if it's more than one person, whether it's a board president or whomever it may be, please make sure to fill that section out so that we can be sure and notify the appropriate people. So the documentation is a 501c3, so that would just be a copy that you have that you would attach with the rest of the documents that are required, and then a list of members or board members. I believe on the RFA we do have that it says list of board members. It can certainly be either or. And then the other attachment that we supplied was attachment B, which was the budget worksheet. And I do want to point out that this is just an estimate. We realize that there are some amounts that you're not able to totally figure out fully, and that's completely fine. We acknowledge that, and we expect that, actually. And basically how that works is, let's say you've got, I don't know, $1,500 budgeted for travel, but we find out kind of once the grant gets started and things like that maybe we need to either add or reduce that line item. We're certainly willing to work with you on that. So I do want to make sure that you all know that the budget portion, as long as you stay within the amount that's awarded, we can adjust that. That's absolutely doable. And there will be things that change as you move along through the grant. Right now, the grant process that we're in right now, we're finding, since we're kind of getting towards the end of the grant phase, that there's a lot of line adjustments that have to be made. So just know that we're flexible with that, and we're willing to work with you on that as well. The program narrative, so I do want to talk about this for just a minute. So this is made up of 4 sections, and basically this is just a Word document that you would label each section. So you would have a community description section, a community capacity section, a cultural competency and sustainability section, and then an organizational description. So each of those different sections you would just type out on a Word document and answer them. We want to know about your community. We want to know about the size of your community. We want to know about your coalition. We want to know about what grant work have you done before, if any. Basically, what challenges are you faced with in your community? What kind of work are you looking to do? What is there a marijuana issue? Is there an underage drinking issue? Like, what are some of the things that you've done? And to be real honest, one of the things that we see a lot on applications is, well, we haven't been able to do this, or one of our weaknesses is XYZ, and everybody has weaknesses. Everybody has areas that they really want to do better at. We want to know about the things that you're successful at. And I say that because sometimes that's the hardest thing to write about, but it's super important. We expect you to have challenges. We expect you to have barriers. We expect you to have areas that maybe aren't as strong as some others, and that's perfectly fine. We certainly don't expect anyone to be, just out there killing it. But we want to know about your successes. Like, what are some good things that are working in your community, and what are some things that you're working towards to be able to make change. So I would encourage you to write about that. And like I said, sometimes that's a little difficult, but so yeah, and it's perfectly fine to mention some of the areas that you have that you would like to strengthen. I don't want to just totally ignore that, but I guess what I'm asking more of is, tell us about some of the good things that's going on, the strengths. So really the only two documents that you will have that we have provided for you are the actual application and the budget form. Everything else will be either copies of what you have already, your board members, your 501c, those kinds of things, and then the tax clearance certificate. The tax clearance is not the same as tax exempt. Sometimes that gets a little bit confusing. The tax clearance is, you go online, and I believe the link is there with the RFA, but you would go online, and it just basically what it does is it says that the organization doesn't have any taxes that they owe to the state, I think is the purpose behind it. And it is a little bit tricky. You have to go in and enter the information, and then I think within 24 hours, it asks you to go back to that link, and it will give you an identification number once you have submitted. And then when you go back and enter that identification number 24 hours later, then it will generate the certificate for you. I always thought that it would like send you an email or something when the certificate was ready, but it's actually left up to you to go back in and pull up or print the certificate, and then you can just save it as a PDF and attach it with the rest of your application and the required documents. So some of the common questions that we typically get, obviously, is who is eligible. One of the most common questions is that we've had funding prior. Are we eligible? And we certainly want to open this up to as many folks as we can. And as I mentioned earlier, we have in the past, we've had two different RFAs. We've had planning and implementation, and then 1 year we did have an additional. But so this is for planning, And if you've received grant funding from the state prior, that's actually an advantage to you, I think, because you've had the experience. You kind of know what to expect, those sorts of things. But if you've received planning funds from KDADs, or I wouldn't even say planning, if you've received implementation funds, because there is a difference, then there certainly is a possibility that you may not be eligible. Now, there are some circumstances that we've had where a coalition applied for a planning grant, received it, and had lots of staff changes and just situations that they were not able to fully complete the grant requirements. And, that's instances like that we don't necessarily have any control over. I would recommend to go ahead and apply again, because if you've got a whole new coalition, or you've got different people and different leadership and those kinds of things, then that tends to make a difference. So I don't want to say if you've had planning funds before, don't apply, because there are some situations that we have seen in the past that could affect that. So yeah, that's kind of a gray area. But anyway, so one of the other questions was, or that we typically get is, what if we want to address something other than substance use in our community? So this particular grant, this federal grant, is tied to substance use, and that's not something that the state necessarily has any control over. That's kind of what the feds determine. However, one of the things that typically gets brought up is well, we think that we have a marijuana issue, or there's a lot of kids that are using marijuana, and it's been talked about, and our coalition wants to do something about it. And then once we get the data and we evaluate the data, we see that maybe marijuana is not as high of an issue as maybe something else. And I'm not saying that you wouldn't be able to address marijuana, but that it really, the purpose is to be able to use that data to find out for sure what it is. And so the data will kind of determine some of those factors. There's always the ability to be able to tie in risk and protective factors, and other priority areas that are within your community that are important to you. So I will say that I wouldn't discount that if it's totally out of the realm. However, it does have to be tied to substance use, some way, shape, or form, and there's ways to do that. Now, one of the questions that I have had in the past as well is, well, can we use the funding specifically for, let's say, suicide prevention? And the answer to that would be no. While it can be used for awareness, I should say, as long as it is tied to a specific substance use, then we can allow it. But if it's just directed towards one particular priority, then unfortunately that's not the case. So again, just one of the other kind of more common questions that we get, we're a small coalition and we're not sure we can complete all the grant requirements. And so through the planning grant, one of the things that we will help you with, as I mentioned, is to develop that coalition capacity. We know that one person doing all the work does not make you a successful coalition, and it does require the work of other folks, other people. So sometimes that's easier said than done, but that's one of the things that through this planning grant that we will help you with. We understand that most of the community mobilizers or the coordinators through the coalition, typically the reporting and the requirements tends to fall on one person. And when you're part-time and you've got kids and another job and other commitments, it's difficult to do, and we certainly understand that. And so we really try to help you use the strengths of your other members. You know, the folks that are on your coalition, they're there because they want to be there most of the time, I hope, and they're there because they want you to be able to rely on them, to be able to use them. They want to provide input. They want to be of value to you. So I cannot stress enough how important it is that if you are awarded a grant, that you should share it with everyone on your coalition, everyone that's going to be involved in the work, so that everyone is aware of what's required. If there's a due date that's coming up and you know you're sick, or you have a family member that's sick and you're not able to complete it, that you're not left with the stress of, I have to do this all on my own and no one's there to help me. So it really is a partnership. And we understand that, and we're certainly there to help you with that as well. So the other questions that were submitted, they are, the KPC did send them out. There wasn't too many. I want to say like maybe 7 or 8, but they're also posted on KDAD's website as well. If you have not seen those, you can go there to look at those. I just picked out some of the more common questions that we typically get from year to year. And so lastly, I wanted to add this in here. Grant work is difficult, and communication, I cannot tell you how important communication is from beginning to end. You know, sometimes I think grantees think, well, if we don't know something, I'm not going to ask because that might not necessarily look good in our favor. And I couldn't disagree more. If you don't know something or something isn't clear, we certainly want to know about it, because that means that either we need to do a better job on our end, or that's just, if you're not sure about something, that's just a way for us to be able to help you succeed. So communication is very important, and not just amongst you know, the state and the grantee, but also amongst your coalition members as well. Secondly, I have one here that utilize the resources that are given to you, and sometimes that can seem overwhelming. We push out a lot of information, and we bring to you a lot of tools and resources, but they are there for your benefit. And like I said, you know, there's the required trainings, but then there's also the optional trainings. It can be a bit overwhelming at times, but there's a method to the madness. And I'd rather you have more information and not use it than not enough information. So I highly recommend using the resources that are given to you. Thirdly here, you know, this is a process. SAMHSA says that we need to use the SPIF model, so we use the strategic, the framework model, and so that is a process. I'm actually on a anti-human trafficking coalition here in Topeka, and I am in this process right now where we're in this planning phase, we're in this assessment phase, and it's frustrating because there's a lot of folks who are like, okay, well, what can I do? I want to do it now. Here's what I want to do. We want to get out there and we want to do the work. And we've had to kind of take a step back and go, okay, you know what, we have to assess what the issue is. We have to assess who's involved, who isn't involved, who needs to be involved, so that we can make the biggest impact. And so that can be frustrating. but the strategic prevention framework model is used to help guide you through each of those steps so that you are able to implement the strategies that you choose to implement, and that it is done in an effective way. So method to the madness, so to speak. I've mentioned this before, but you absolutely will have the support from all the KPC partners, but you will be given lots of opportunities to network with other grantees, grantees that either are in the same situation as your community or similar, or those who have been through the process and are now on to an implementation phase. So you will get a lot of opportunities to network those who are either in a similar situation or as far as grant goes. But really, while there's a lot of differences throughout our Kansas communities, there's a lot of similarities. And I have been really amazed at how coalitions have been able to really support one another and offer suggestions and feedback and perspectives to different ways that have been able to help them. So again, it's just kind of building on what your peers are doing and being able to use those as opportunities to strengthen your work. And then lastly, tell your story. This is really, really important. You have to be able to, if somebody asks you what you do or what's the work being done or what, and it can be a personal story, but tell your story, because that is what helps people connect to you, to understand why prevention work is so important and why we do it. Because your story helps to create purpose. And when you have a purpose, you have passion, and passion is what helps get the work done. I honestly can say that if I didn't have a passion for making my community better for my kids and my family and all of those that live here, you know, what's it going to mean? It's not going to mean anything. But I do have a passion for it. It's not easy, but it's absolutely worth it. And we want to be able to help you all find that passion and find that purpose so that you can make positive change in your community as well. So I will get off my soapbox and I will open it up for any questions. And I'm happy to provide clarification. And then, so we are recording this and we will post it and send it out. But if you do have questions that you want to direct to me personally, you can certainly do that. There's my email and my phone number.
Thank you, Mindy. This is Chad jumping in. We did have a couple of good questions in the chat. And so I'll read those to you now while other people are thinking of their questions. Robert asked, for this planning grant, what types of equipment and supplies are appropriate and justifiable? Thanks.
Oh, good question. Good question. Yeah, so, you know, that kind of, that's different for everyone. If you need to purchase a laptop or, so one of the things that, and I think I mentioned this, that we will utilize is online trainings or web form trainings or web-based. So if you need to purchase a headset, or even software to use on your computer so that you're able to have access to that. So, yeah, I mean, it's really up to you as to what is going to help move you forward. Like what do you need that will help you accomplish the task that's needed? And I'm trying to think, it could be a printer, it could be you know, office equipment, just general office equipment. Supplies is something else, you know, whether it's paper, stamps, you know, things like that.
Thanks, Mindy. Yeah, Robert let us know in the chat if you have another question related to that one or others. Mindy, Robert has another question he had asked about, will the KPC provide technical support in data analysis? Thanks.
Yes, they certainly will. So we have one of our partners is Greenbush and KU, and both of them help with the data and the evaluation, and they will provide documents to you once the data is collected, and there's kind of a twofold to that. So one of those would be information that you would share with your coalition, and they will explain. And I'm sorry, I'm not a data person. I'm not a data person. And they are very, very smart and very they know what they're doing. So they have a way of doing it that they make it understandable. But they're able to collect the data, and they will provide a report to you, and then they will explain kind of what it all means and where your community lies as far as, are they aware of the issue, are they not aware, and kind of that's on a scale as to kind of to help you determine where to focus your priorities, if that helps to clarify that. So yes, you would definitely have support around data and evaluation.
Thanks, Mindy. Another question is from Melissa. Melissa asks, what types of consultation fees are appropriate?
Consultations. Can you clarify, like, what type of consultation? Because I'm wondering if I might be getting that confused with.
It was, yeah, and Melissa's responding. It was included in the budget worksheet, a line item for consultation.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. So that's on there. So some coalitions choose to contract with maybe an outside person to help them in multiple areas, really, but maybe to help them kind of on a different, more personal one-on-one level. So different than what DECA would provide, because that's kind of DECA's role is training and technical assistance. And that line was really just left on there in case that's something that coalitions choose to do. It's not required. It's not something that you necessarily have to go out and look for. I would say that if you are looking to contract with an outside source, we probably will ask some questions as to what that will look like, just so that there's not duplicate work being done between DECA and the contractor.
Thanks, Mindy. Yeah, Melissa, let us know if you have a follow-up question to that response. Mindy, Robert has asked a question of, is there a charge we should add to this data analysis service for the technical assistance?
Yeah, another good question. You guys are asking good questions. So all of the support that you receive from the KPC is offered to you at no charge. There is multiple areas that each of the partners will cover, and that is not something that you have to include in your budget. So the budget will only be for what work you all, and you all meaning your coalition or your agency, will be needing outside of what is offered to you through this process.
Thanks, Mindy. This is Chad again. There aren't any other current questions in the chat, but might give a couple minutes here if anybody wants to open their microphone or phone and ask a question or type another question into the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you get off of here and you think, oh, well, I forgot to ask, or this got brought up, and whatever it may be, certainly feel free to send me an email or give me a call. Again, we want to provide as much clarification for you so that if you're taking this back to the powers that be or to your coalition or whomever it may be, that you have the answers to those questions. And I will put a plug in here. If you are not already registered with the Kansas Prevention Collaborative on their website, you can add your email and you will get any notifications that come out through them if you aren't doing that currently. And because the trainings and opportunities that we offer are not just for funded coalitions. In fact, that's one of the things that we're trying to do is to get as many communities and counties across the state to participate in the TENS. So you can certainly go to the website and check it, or you can actually sign up and receive those notifications when new things are posted or new opportunities are available.
Thanks, Mindy. Melissa has asked another question. Do support letters help in the decision, especially from those who have come to the table to form a coalition?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We haven't asked for support letters in the past, typically because, well, I think for a number of different reasons, but I think it certainly can provide you with an advantage. We have had coalitions, or we've had I should say applicants who are wanting to form a new coalition, like their brand spanking new, and so I think in the past we haven't necessarily asked for that, maybe for that particular reason. But yes, I would say if you have it or someone's willing to give you one, then by all means. Any other questions? All right. Well, I want to thank you all for being on here today. I certainly appreciate it. We hope to see applications from you all. Again, if you have any questions, please let us know. And we will have announcements made by the 7th of June, if not before. And the deadline for the applications is May 31st. So thank you all so much for your time, and thank you for the work that you do. It's very important, and we want to support you all the best we can.